This meeting is being recorded.
Oh, that's new. A new little voice in there. This meeting is being recorded.
She said we kind of ticked off.
All right, folks, welcome to Beginners Academy. We have talks for new and returning hams. We also have a number of mentors here on Zoom. And tonight, we have a mentor from Canada, Chris Bigelow, VA3ECO, and he is going to talk about something very interesting, aircraft scatter. And if we're lucky, we can have a live demo. So I'll turn it over to Chris.
Thanks, Greg. Yeah, it all depends on if we get enough airplanes or not. So this is the, I'm doing a couple of static slides here first before we go live to my screen, talking to Greg, and we might be able to pop over to his screen as well. This is a QSO from not that long ago, about a month ago, I think, or less, between myself and a guy in Minnesota. And we're using Q65 mode for this with the WSJTX software package. So that's the same package that you'd use for FT8. And it's a little bit like FT8. It's got a little more gain or sensitivity, depending on how you want to look at it. And it is called Q65. So I'll talk about later how to pull up Q65. One thing I'd like to point out is at the bottom left-hand corner will be a little window here telling you what mode you're in at any point in time. If you're doing FT8 and FT4 on a contest day or something and you forget which one you're in, this is a nice feature to look in the bottom left to see where you are exactly. In Q65, there's a couple of sub modes and time periods you can play with. We have ours set to 15 seconds and sub mode is B. The reason for that is 15 seconds gives us enough time usually to get the QSO back and forth before the plane leaves. Initially, we were doing this with a gang up in Canada and Minnesota, and we were doing 30 seconds, and we need two planes, and there's quite a gap between them sometimes, and it got kind of, we thought, well, let's go 15, and you can usually pull it off with one airplane going with 15 seconds. Submode B gives us a certain bandwidth, and you can see at the top of the screen here. So looking at this screen, much like the FT8 screen, this is your 0 to 3000 hertz. That's your audio bandwidth of your radio. It lets you put two conversations into one audio bandwidth. So we would have quite a few guys doing this at one time. So one of us would go down from 500 to 1500, and the other guy could go like from 1700 up to 2700, and we could get two people talking at the same time. Wider is better, we think, because the tones that we're putting out are wider spaced. And as the plane comes in perpendicular to your radio path, the Doppler shift is quite pronounced as the plane comes in and then departs. When I first saw this and heard about it, I thought, you know, that's kind of crazy. The plane is going, 600 miles an hour, and the radio waves are going 186,000 miles per second. How could a slow plane affect a fast radio wave? But someone explained it to me once. I can't recite it now, but if you do the physics of it, it is true. It will shift the Doppler, especially on the higher bands. Now this QSO here was done in the UHF band, and it becomes quite dramatic. It won't be quite so dramatic with Greg and I later on tonight because we're going to be 2 meters. But either way, the B mode gives us a little wider tone spacing and lets us handle that shift as the plane goes through. Another item here is maximum drift. I don't quite understand exactly what it means, but I think setting that to 50 helps us out as well, in that the tones can drift a little bit and still copy. F tolerance is something that I know you wouldn't see that in FT8. That's the tolerance and frequency that you can be from the other station. And what that will do is that'll affect the size. The green here is your receive tolerance, and it's set to 200. So I can go 200 hertz up and 200 hertz down from where Greg's left tone is and still hear Greg. Okay.
Well,
Total.
Chris, I have a question.
Yeah.
Why would a person want to do airplane scatter?
Just for the heck of it. I think it could be used for emergency communications to some degree. As you know, these digital modes, you can't really type in too much stuff, but you can put in some text in one of the boxes here. This one here. With
Yeah, I
the
was
pull
thinking
down
about a little signal that things are okay or they're not.
Yeah, yeah, you can say send blankets or I'm hurt or whatever. You can get in 2 or 3 words down there. So from an Aries perspective, I don't know it would be super duper, but it is possible. It's more of a kind of a just to see if we could do it thing in ham radio versus any practical purpose, I think.
Well, what's the advantage?
I think the aircraft is high up. Greg and I, and we'll be going to a slide of that shortly here. We don't have line of sight between us. So the only way we're going to work on a VHF band, which we're going to try here shortly, is bounce off something, and that in the summertime would be an inversion layer of air, cold air at the bottom, warm air at the top. And if the winds aren't too strong, you'll have a line in between, and you can bounce off of that. And people have seen that when you'll pick up repeaters from quite a ways away all of a sudden one day, and that may last for half an hour, several hours, but it's not really repeatable and it's not very often. Whereas this one, all we need is a plane and it's going to go. So it's a little more, and it can be done summer, winter, spring, and fall. Whereas inversion layers, well, at least where the part country I come from, it's a summer only situation. Come winter, there's no inversion layers to bounce from. I don't know if that is what you're looking at, Greg. That's the best.
Well, I think you answered the question on why you might get into this.
Yeah. So I'll be doing a little topographical picture of where Greg and I are in a contour of land between us in a second here. The 64 tones. So Q65 is the mode. It stands for 65 tones. So right on the left-hand side here is a marker tone, this one here. And the rest of the little dits all over the place are the 64 tones that contain the data. There is a lot of forward error checking. I was reading some technical papers on this, and apparently half those data bits are done with error checking codes like checksums and all kinds of very advanced algorithm stuff. And then some are the actual text itself. So it's a very advanced low signal propagation system where you can pick out signals that are very, very weak. This particular one was strong enough to show up on the waterfall. Greg and I were doing some last week where we could not see anything on the waterfall at all, and yet we were getting good copy. So it's an extremely powerful system. Let's go to the next slide. Any questions on that slide before I go to the next one? So how effective is it? Here's a little graph. I don't know how accurate it is. They took CW and referenced that as 0 dB, just arbitrarily. And so a 100-watt station doing CW has equivalent power of a single sideband station at 31,000 watts, 31 kilowatts. FT8, which people know works quite well. It'll do the same consistency of signal transfer at 25 watts compared to a CW station at 100 watts. The mode we're about to use, Q65 15S, that's 15 seconds, is 13 watts. So it's actually, the mode we're doing here is about 3 dB better than FT8. And when Greg and I were experimenting last week, we switched over to FT8 and did some trials, and it was markedly different. We got 1 or 2 copies on FT8, whereas we were getting half a dozen or so on Q65. So it is definitely a marked improvement. Now, the problem with it is we need to be very accurate on the other person's frequency, whereas FT8, you can have 20 people across the band, and you can transmit on one place and he can transmit the other. And if your radio is not calibrated to the exact frequency, it doesn't really matter, it'll work. Whereas this here is a different story. And we'll talk a little bit about frequency calibration in a second. Liaison, while you're doing this, FT8, you'll kind of go blind, call someone, they happen to hear you, you'll get them back. If you're doing this to another station that's between 100 and 400 miles away, you would typically pre-arrange it. So this would be done by SCED, and you would even do it live, either through a phone call, text messaging, FaceTime. We've got this group that we do this back home with, a Slack channel. I don't know if you guys have ever played with Slack at all, but this is a Slack screen, and it's a text only, and it's free. And if you get more people doing this at one time, we've got 5 or 6 people in the summer, 3 or 4 people in the winter. And it's handy that you can all jump in and be texting different things. Whereas with a phone call, it's a one-to-one. Whereas this way you can get a few people, you can copy and paste what you just saw on your screen. You can talk about, I think we worked that Chicago flight before sometime. This is a Chicago flight heading south between us and stuff. This is another guy who is just listening along. He was actually in Arizona, so he wasn't participating, but he's a guy who kind of got us started on all this weak signal stuff. So on Wednesday nights, we do UHF. On Monday nights, we do VHF. On Friday nights, they do 1296. I don't own a radio that does that, so I don't participate in that. And then occasionally on Rain Scatter, we're working on 10 gigahertz, and we'll use channel 4. So you can set all this up for free. One person sets it up, sends the invite to the other people, and it's really slick. It's a lot like Microsoft Messenger or something like that, I suppose. But it's called Slack, and it's a great way to get in touch with your other folks. Another way to get a hold of people, let's say you've got nobody to talk to, but you suspect you want to give it a shot and talk to someone you don't even know, is Ping Jockey. Here, I'll go up here. It's some guy named Chris.org. And this is used for meteor scatter predominantly, but he's entered a new chat page called Splat65, which handles JT65, Q65, and meteor scatter as well. But if it's done terrestrially, in other words, if we're not bouncing off of meteors or the moon, then we go to this page. So this is another resource. You do need to register this, but you don't have to send them a bunch of stuff in. You click on this red update user detail box, and a little form comes up. What's your call sign? What's your first name? What's your grid? What state are you in? Done. And now your computer will remember it with your cookies. So you can go back to this page a week later, and you will have your call sign pop up in there, and it'll be automatically set to you. And now to work this thing, it's very rude and crude. You type in your message here, you hit enter or hit the word go, and then your message pops up here. And it's just as simple as that. And you can say CQing north, aircraft scatter, 144, whatever frequency you're on. And if there's someone within a couple of 100 miles happens to be listening, they might take the bait and join you. or you might have a buddy that, you know, you don't want to bother setting up the Slack thing. You can both sign on to Ping Jockey and away you go. Meteor Scatter, this is a very powerful tool. But with aircraft scatter, it could be used also. Anyone seen Ping Jockey before? No, it's you know, you don't even have to register to watch the commentary going back and forth. It's worth Googling, and especially in the morning when people are doing their meteors and stuff, it's fun just to see what they're doing, what frequencies they're on, and how much luck they're having and stuff. It's kind of an interesting to look at, just to eavesdrop. So I was talking about Flight Radar 24. This is the software that we'll be using to see if a plane is coming and know, well, we'll probably do a continuous transmit to each other, but this tells us which plane it is we're hitting as it comes through. This was done a couple days ago. You click on the plane, all of a sudden you get a pop-up window. It tells you where the plane is going to and from. You scroll down here, it'll tell you the altitude, 30 to 35,000 feet, higher the better. Hopefully you're not getting one just taking off from Panama City, because by the time it gets to Greg's place, it won't climb that high to be useful, unless it's a private jet. Some of those get up in a hurry, so they might work. Anyhow, this is one of the tools we'll be using shortly. You'll see it on your screen. And again, it's paid and free. Free, it shuts down after 20 minutes. So you just hit the recycle button on your browser and it'll come back up again. Or you can pay a monthly fee for this. Okay. There are other aircraft scatter programs out there. Greg had one, I forget what it was called. This is one that I started using, is Aircraft Scatter Sharp. I would not recommend them because they don't have the database that Flight Radar 24 does, because Flight Radar 24 is a paid service, free or paid. They have got a tremendous amount of listening stations. In fact, if you live in an area that is not being serviced and you're a ham, you can send them an email and they'll send you the antenna, the receiver, and everything. All you need is an internet connection, and they'll give it to you for free to put on your house, as long as you can say, hey, I'll run this 24/7, and you can be a listening station for that Flight Radar 24 that we're just looking at. I did that where I was at, and I thought, you know, I'm in the middle of nowhere, they're going to want me, but no, they said, no, we've got one nearby, so we don't need you. But if they do need me, they'll let me know. So that's how extensive Flight Radar 24 is. It's kind of it's the big daddy. So I found half the planes on this viewing software were not being shown that were being shown on Flight Radar 24. So that's my my pitch for those guys. This is what we're doing. There's Greg.
Yeah.
This is his elk antenna right now pointing towards Panama City Beach. So that's a log periodic UHF VHF. And this is me. So that's sitting outside this wall right now. It's dark now. This picture was taken when it was light. And this is the old arrow antenna. We're using the 2 meters, so the 3 element, not a huge gain antenna. Cable coming down in through our front door here. Oh, I dropped my mouse. And the cable is going out right here beside me, 10 feet away. So that's all we're doing is basically, I think the log periodic is the equivalent of what, a 3 element Yagi there at your end, Greg? 3 or 4?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's got about 8 or 10 elements, but I think it would be the Yagi equivalent of 3 or 4 elements. It's about on par with the arrow, is it not? For receive sensitivity, yeah. So we're each working with 3 element beams here, which are modest, you know, by anyone's stretch of the imagination. A tape measure antenna would do equally well here. This is the shot we're doing, 75 miles from here to Dothan. This is the elevation contour that Greg supplied. Here he is on the left side at Dothan. Here I am on the right side at Panama City Beach. Looks like a bit of a hill in between us. I guess that would be near Ebro or somewhere. Safe to say, we do not have line of sight. he did some calculation and figure if he had a 30-meter and tower, was it 30 meters you said, Greg?
I think, well, at least 10 meters.
At least 10. So about a 10-meter tower, he would maybe have line of sight, but he doesn't. He's only up just barely at his roof height. So we do not have line of sight. Without some kind of enhancement, we're not going to connect. So like I said, summertime, you can get inversion layers, or we can do this with airplanes. So that's what we're about to try. My station, here we are. It's the 857. I'm going to have it dialed down to about 50 watts. Its audio comes out the back. You need a sound card either in your radio or an outboard sound card. This one here, I think I've showed you guys before. It's worth about $8. It's from China. So it's got audio in, audio out. On the audio to the radio, I put a little pot series with it so I can quickly adjust my transmit level without going into my Windows settings. And that comes into a USB port. And then I've also got cat control, which you don't necessarily need, but it's nice to have. And that comes in on the other side of the laptop. And that gives the push to talk control. You can do it with Vox and do away with your cat, but it's nice to have the radio talking to the computer for getting the frequency and stuff right. And that's it for slides. Any questions before we go to the actual screens? Okay, there we are. Oh, and we just missed one. I should have sped things up, Greg. So looking at planes on the left side, we just missed United Airlines going from Houston to Orlando. And like I said, you can scroll down for altitude. 35,000 feet would have been a good one. But he's gone now. And well, that's too bad. You know, I should have been watching that. We could have jumped back to the slides afterwards. Sorry, gang. So now it's a matter of waiting a bit to see if one comes up.
Well, I'm transmitting anyway.
Okay, I'm going to put mine on transmit. While we're doing that, I'll go through the screen a little bit, you guys. And let's move you guys over to here. Oh, I picked you up anyhow.
Uh-oh. That's bad.
Okay.
Well, I see something over toward Mariana. That's probably not it.
Now, because, you know, it was a bit of a warm day, we could have a temperature inversion here now, and this thing might work without the airplane, which would be sad.
Yeah,
But
that would be very sad. Maybe I should turn down my power, huh?
well, I'm only putting out 50 watts here.
Well, I haven't gotten you.
Okay.
Well,
Now I am.
let me double check that.
I am receiving Greg here, and you guys can see the decibel level here. Minus 25 is about as low as it goes. I think it might go down to 26 or 27 dB, but that's 25 decibels below the noise. And we cannot see him on the waterfall at all. I
haven't seen you at all.
Okay, I'll just keep going. And while we're trying here, I'm going to go over some of the stuff on the WSJT. So there's the mode. So the FT8 is here. Q65 is here. So you just click on it, that's it. Meteor scatter is this puppy here. We'll be talking about that on Wednesday. Oh, you know why you're not hearing me?
Because you're not.
I've got it set to, hang on a sec. While we're waiting for a plane, oh, it's set right.
That's-
While we're waiting for a plane, you guys, I'm gonna let you listen to the tones. I was going to my USB audio device. That was that little white sound card. I'm now gonna go to the speakers on this PC. Say, okay. Drive my wife crazy. She's sitting over there watching a movie. And I'm gonna put my microphone near my speakers here. And I'm gonna hit TX. Okay, so that was at the end of a TX cycle, so it didn't bother doing it. It's in a receive cycle right now. The green bar at the bottom I'm looking at down here. When it gets to the end, you'll hear it. So
Well, I
that's,
heard it at the beginning,
could you guys hear the tones all right?
just for a moment.
Yeah, I heard it.
Yeah, you know what? There is a feature of Zoom where they filter out tones as part of their noise reduction system. Now that I remember, that ain't gonna work. So you guys can't hear it, but throughout that whole period was a doo for 15 seconds there. You just have to take my word for it. Now I'm gonna go back into settings, file, settings, audio. My output, I'm now gonna take from my speakers and back to my radio or to my sound card. Yeah, my power is low, but I'm gonna turn you up a bit, Greg. Now we're at 50 watts. So I'm putting out a little less power than Greg. He may not see me. And my flight radar is timed out. I hit my refresh button and back it comes. How much was it to buy there, Greg? Is it by the month or is it a one-shot deal?
I don't remember. Well,
You didn't run it by your wife first?
no. I probably really didn't need to buy in, but I did.
No, I think it's a
See
nice
what
feature,
was
right?
going to happen.
I think I might too. Is this timing out of the screen is a bit of a pain. Okay, let's see what we got here. I'm sorry, guys. That oh, here's one. We got two. Okay. Okay, we've got a Southwest Airlines Dallas to Tampa. That's got to be up there. And right behind him, we've got American Airlines Dallas to Jacksonville. That one might be coming down. What's his altitude? He's still at 35,000 feet though. He probably wouldn't start dropping until he got near. Now he's more on my side. So I'm here. Craig is here.
Yeah. Well, basically, the perfect plane, I think, would be over Chipley.
Yeah. Now the perfect plane would be traveling in the line between us, going
Okay.
north-south. But
Then it would be there a long time. Yeah.
yeah, but well, plus you don't get the Doppler shift then. The Doppler happens as the plane comes in perpendicular to the radio waves. Apparently, if it's running with it, it's there longer and the Doppler is reduced. I don't understand the physics of it totally, but this is what I've seen. But I don't think you get many north-south flights over Panama City Beach. So we'll wait patiently. Let's make sure we're dialed in, right? Oh, you're on, oh, you must be on first, eh, Greg?
On what?
You're first, I'm second.
Let's see.
So what we're looking at is this box right here, you guys. And that's something you got to discuss before you start trying. You must be on first because I double clicked.
Yeah, I'm on first.
Yeah. So Greg must have been on first because remember when I started out this, I double clicked on his CQ and that automatically put me as second. He'll have this box checked off on his screen. Now, what we have to look at here too is frequencies. He's probably at, I think we do this at about 1,000 hertz on your screen, Greg.
Well, I'm set to 1,005. I think.
Okay, and I'm my last signal of him is 1,006. That's beautifully calibrated, but we can tell you that initially it was not calibrated at all. I was out about 320 hertz. So what we did was we waited until he could actually see my signal on a good airplane, figured out what the error was. And for people with older radios, that ICOM 1000, was it, Corey, that you bought? It might be in this boat. Oh, that's an HF radio anyhow, so it doesn't fly. But anyhow, if you've got an older radio like the IC706, the FT857, a lot of the older style radios, the TS2000 is definitely one that needs it. File, settings, frequencies, and this little box here is a calibration of slope. I had to put in minus 2.2 parts per million, which took me down 300 hertz, and that lined up my radio with Greg's radio. Now I use his radio as a reference because it's a new ICOM 9700. It's probably right on the money. Mine is probably very much not on the money. So I'm assuming his is right, and I calibrated to him using this. There is a setup procedure in WSJT where you can do this in the HF bands using the WWV signal. I've never done it, but I've read about it. So there is a utility in this software package where you can come up with these numbers without having someone with a good radio to listen to. But this is important in this mode and meteor scatter and Earth, Moon, Earth. On FT8, again, doesn't really matter. But if you're doing these modes, this little fudge thing has to be done. Once it's done, it holds steady for a dog's age. So it's a one-shot deal. You don't have to do it, week after week. It's a one-shot deal, and that's it. So my radio, we're set to 1,000, and our I don't know why that went to 997. We're basically at 144.116. My radio is at 115.68. It's like over 300 hertz lower than what Greg and me have on our WSJT panels here. But that's because of that fudge factor that I put in. Now that plane, I think this one's going to be our good one. The American Airlines is probably the one we're going to hit here in a few minutes. And I am still are you still transmitting, Greg?
Yeah.
Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to halt and then restart, because there is a timeout feature in WSJT. I don't know if you guys have played with FT8 at all. It is under General, and it's a TX Watchdog. This is set to 10 minutes here. You might want to bump that up, depending on how much power you're putting out. Maybe you do want it 10 minutes. But that's something to be aware of, that this thing will not transmit forever. WSJT has got a watchdog timer. By turning it off and turning it on again, I've reset it for another 10 minutes. Okay, so that plane is approaching Chipley right now. You guys can see the plane, okay? It's in red. I assume everyone can see my screen. Can you see it, Frank? Can you see the plane?
Yeah, AAL 24949.
Yeah.
That's red.
Yeah, and let's see, let's make sure he's not dropped down. So he's still flying at 35,000 feet. Let's move the map a bit.
Do you have to aim your antenna at the airplane?
No, you aim it at the other person and you let the plane pass in between.
Okay.
Oops. Okay, so here's Dothan, Panama City Beach. He's probably a minute away from coming in. Hopefully this works, guys.
Hopefully.
And like I said, it'll be a quick thing. Okay, I just got a copy from him. Greg, if you see me, you got to click on me, eh?
Okay.
In fact, you could even start off with you could generate the message yourself.
Oh, yeah, I got you. I got you.
Okay, click on it real quick.
Okay, I'm sending a -25.
Okay. Now that's odd that we didn't pick up on that. There we go. So we just picked up Greg. Now this plane's just motoring. We may not be able to finish this QSO with this plane, but we got half the QSO done. You guys see the red? That's from Greg responding to me. And it looks like that's it. So almost.
Well,
Here's the thing. If there were
it
more
went
planes,
both ways, really.
yeah, it went both ways. Now, according to the gurus, this is not a completed QSO. One person has to get the RRR next, or the RR73, which is what you would be sending after you got my R22. So this is not quite a finished QSO. But if there was a lot of planes around, we could have this thing done. You know, if there's a plane coming behind it 5 minutes later, like it is around supper time, this thing would be done very quickly, you know, with the work of 2 planes. Possibly if Greg had my call sign punched in initially instead of CQ, we might have been able to do it. But anyhow, the principle is there. Let's just see if there's anything in behind. Oh, there's one way back here. Dallas to Orlando. That might do the job. 35,000 feet, pretty good sized plane.
Yeah, it'd be nice if a 747 would come by.
Yeah. And you see that when you get a big plane like that, then the QSO is much easier to finish because you'll get a lot longer where it's working. Well, he's coming up pretty fast. So I'll just let this. I'll just let this thing roll. So he's probably sending. You're probably still sending me -25, Greg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should I just leave it at that?
Yeah, just leave it where it is. This next plane, you'll probably get my R-22 that I'm sending you right now. And then you'll immediately send me my RRR or RR73, depending on what you've got for your TX4 box. And once that's done, the QSO is official. Here's a thing when it comes to meteor scatter, aircraft scatter, or even FT8, when the RRR is received by a station, it's complete, but you need some means of telling the other station that you got that. You can do that with an email, telephone, a Zoom page like we're on now, or a ping jockey page. If you're not using those facilities, then you need to go to a 73 after that to make it official. But if you've got some way of conveying that you've received the RRR, then it's officially a QSO. Also, if you're doing this in a meteor scatter page or whatever, you should not be discussing what you got on your screen before it's done. So what we're doing here today is in a public forum like Ping Jockey is frowned upon. You can say, I heard your CQ, I'm calling you. But then after that, the next thing you have to be able to say is, I got your RR. You do not come out and say, oh, I got your -25. Oh, I'm sending you an R -22. Not supposed to say that in public forums anyhow. So that's just an etiquette thing that people will point out to you if you breach it. So we're halfway through the QSO, but we'll need a second plane to finish it. Hope you guys aren't itching to leave.
Well, this is a little off topic, but Ken and Ken lives in Enterprise. I live in Dothan. Between us is Fort Rucker and Cairns Field, a whole lot of helicopters
Yes.
at about 2,000 feet. So I have no idea what would happen, but it might be interesting to play.
But you're closer, aren't you? You're what, 40 miles, 50 miles?
About 30 miles.
Yeah, you know what? I think that would probably work. Especially if one of the copters goes a little higher than some of the other ones.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them though, usually.
Oh, I remember. Oh, we got it while we're yakking.
Oh, we got it.
Yeah, so that next plane has already entered into the field and we're complete. So I'm sending him my 73 right now, but that's superfluous because I can tell him verbally that I got the RRR. So we're official. WSJT pops up this nice little logger here. It gives his call sign, the start, the finish time, the mode, the band, what you sent, what you received, and what grid he is in. And you just say okay, and that goes into the logger here. You can bring that log into whatever other electronic logging you like to do, or if you're paper logging, you can transfer it to your paper log. If you forgot what it was, or let's say you want to do the whole week's worth at one time, you go File, Open Log Directory, and it's WSJT ADI. There it is there. It's an ADI file, which is a standard logging format. Double click on that, and there is our log. There's a couple of QSOs in there. It looks rather cryptic, but it's a standard format that's recognized by all logs.
There's a text log you can look at also.
Oh yeah, I should show you that too.
Yeah.
Close that. And what is that, Greg?
I think it's
This one here.
log. Yeah.
There we go. So I did a guy in Quebec with FT8 3 weeks ago. Then I did Greg last week when we were testing this thing. And then we did Greg just tonight here. So date, time, his call sign, his grid, frequency, Q65, yada, yada, yada. So it's all, and that just keeps on going. If you don't delete it, it stays there forever. So you can do a bunch of QSOs and transfer that over to your own log. You can also link WSJT to many other loggers electronically, so you don't have to do anything. I don't have it set up on this computer, but my one back home automatically, as soon as I hit OK, it would have jumped over through DD, whatever, Direct Data Exchange with Microsoft, over to the other logging software, all tic-tac-toe, and then upload to LOTW is 2 clicks away, and it's all very automatic. So I don't know if you want to go to that extent, but it's all out there. Any questions about what we just did?
Well, it's not a question, but it just happens if you zoom out on flight radar 24, there's a lot more planes than others places. There's kind of a hole between us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is, but here's where I'm from. Actually, right now there is a few planes where I'm from up here. And some people are quite into this. We'll pick the same plane night after night. They'll say, "Oh, we can expect this plane coming over and give it a shot," and actually pre-program their QSO for a particular plane they know happens to be coming. But yeah, you're right. It's not great pickings. It was great pickings in the afternoon, though, I must say.
And the time makes a difference. Yeah.
Yeah, supper time
Daytime
is
is-
always a great time. 6 p.m. great time
Yeah.
anywhere. So is my picture jumping up and down for everyone?
Yeah.
I wonder what's causing that.
And mine is
Uh,
too.
Anyhow, so I'll leave the screen on here. So it doesn't
Maybe
drag me.
that the bandwidth is a little,
Yeah, that could be, although I did a test the other day. It's all right. So anyone else got questions? Anyone want to be trying this? Has anyone got a 2-meter beam or a UHF beam and want to give this a shot some other week, some other day? Isn't there some guys who've got the FT991 Yaesu, Greg?
I got that.
Yeah, that'd be
Jim has one too.
that would be a beauty radio for this.
And Chad.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
that's a new radio. Your frequency would be right on the money, Frank.
Jim Nelson.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I don't know, in Puerto Rico, I lived on a hill facing the southeast, and my friends are on the other side of the mountain. And I discovered that if I had a beam and I aimed it at another antenna, that would reflect the signal. So I made a PVC antenna that was resonant to the frequency, and I mounted on the top of the mountain up there. And I had a handheld beam, and I would aim it at that, and they could pick me up.
Yeah, especially if there's some mineral like iron in the hills or whatever, any kind of metallic ore or something like that to bounce off.
It would just bounce off that standalone antenna.
Yeah.
You know, I just mounted an antenna that not attached to anything. It would reflect.
Well, you think about it, it's bouncing off the moon for EME, and that's a very poor radio reflector, and yet it works.
But I matched the antenna to the same frequency I was transmitting on.
Yeah.
So that
Now, one thing I'd like to point out is during this whole thing, I wasn't paying too much attention. Maybe somebody else is. I did not see any of Greg's signal. Greg, did you see any of mine?
No. But
So-
I will say that when we were doing this the other day, I heard the tones
You could hear a tone.
briefly,
Yeah.
but I didn't hear them tonight.
Yeah. So that's it. No audio, no video, and yet I was picking up Greg between, well, from -14 to -24 or 25 dB below the noise. So that's
what
how
mode
sensitive
was this?
this is Q65.
Is that similar to FT8?
Yeah, and that's what I was
Good.
talking about. Actually, did you come in a little late, Frank, or?
Yeah, I came in about a half hour late.
Okay, you know what? I'm going to take this down. I'm going to run back to a slide just to recap on that.
Hey,
Go
Chris,
back. Yeah,
you might be able to tweak the settings on your waterfall in order to be able to see the
yeah.
other guy's signal.
Change the the background blueness and stuff. Yeah, but we've done it before where you don't see boom all and yet it still comes through. So Frank, you missed this part. We talked about, I'll do a quick recap. FT8, this graph was made with CW arbitrarily set to 0 dB. Okay, and FT8 will beat CW. Well, again, a CW is a bit subjective, depends on how good the guy's ears are, right? But typically about 6 dB better. And the mode we're doing is about 9 dB better than CW. So we're about 3 to, I think this is conservative. I think we're more like 6 dB better than FT8 on this Q65 mode. Does that
Are
answer
you
your?
transmitting, Chris?
No, I'm not.
Well, go ahead.
Okay. Oh, I am. I was
Okay.
transmitting a CQ for some reason.
Well, there's a
Well-
plane headed for Chipley right now, 34,000 feet.
Okay, well, let me do a CQ. Or do you want to go over to FTA,
just-
Greg?
I don't know. I'm good.
Okay, I'll
You
do a
got an
CQ.
answer.
Do you want me to do a stop share and we'll pick up your screen, Greg? Can we do that? Are you set up for that, Greg?
Well, I'll see.
I'll have to do a stop.
Go ahead and
I'll do a stop share. And Greg's gonna try to do a share from his end. Okay, now we're looking at Greg's screen.
well, it looks like I'm getting your CQ. I'm not as familiar with it as you are, obviously. Are you seeing my screen?
I'm getting your RRRs. Is that what you're sending?
No, it's cycled around.
Okay. Oh, shoot.
He was sending the RRs for a long time because he never got a 73 back.
Yeah. Yeah. Now here's a little quirk with WSJT, and even the FT8 guys have probably noticed this, that if you get an RRR, it sends 173 and then it turns a transmitter off. Or maybe I've got a setting set wrong there or something. I don't know. If anyone's got an idea on what I'm doing wrong, let me know. Now I'm having trouble seeing my screen and seeing Greg at the same time. I'm gonna try to do something here. You full screen. Exit full screen. There we go. Okay, I got Greg on my left and me on my right. That works better. So I'm still CQing, Greg.
Well, I see these CQs for you, but they're not in red.
No, they won't be, because a CQ isn't to you, it's to everybody. Now I'll switch over to calling you direct. And now that's directed to you, then it would be coming in red. Oh, and I got you there too. Actually, I'll click on you and I'll be sending you a -18. Yeah, I did get one of you. I got you at my call sign, your call sign, your grid, and at -18. So now I'm returning you, me, and a -18 as a report.
Yeah.
So that will come in on red as you, but we probably lost the plane already, I guess. I'm watching.
I
my
think
radar.
so. There's a
Oh, well.
8,000.
Anyhow, so another half a QSO.
Well,
Yes,
if
Mark?
it was too easy, it wouldn't be worthwhile. So,
Yeah.
oh well.
I need together with one of you guys, and I've dabbled with this. I did it once before. I don't know how I managed to make it work, but I'm not fluid at it, so
Well,
I need to.
I think,
need-
Frank, the first thing is start with FT8
Yeah,
on an HF band. And why don't we get together anytime, maybe even in the afternoon or something. Greg, you could do a Zoom meeting with the three of us, and we could. Are you doing it on the same computer that you're on right now, Frank, or you've got a separate computer for FT8?
I don't have any computer set up for FT8, but I got multiple laptops.
Yeah.
In fact, I got a small little portable one that I got that that I have that program in there.
Are you on a phone? Are you on a phone now or a tablet or something or what?
I'm on a laptop computer.
Is that laptop capable of doing FD8 as well?
Well, these are all new computers. I don't know.
Well, what I'm getting at, Frank, is if you were
Weird.
to use the computer you're doing your Zoom with or your FT8, then all you got to do is hit share screen and we can walk you through what, what might not be right or whatever. We can see what you're doing. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, okay.
And it would be easy breezy. We'd have you going in minutes.
I just need to take the time to do that. I'm always doing all kinds of different things.
Oh yeah, yeah. But on a rainy day,
Yeah.
take your Zoom laptop, install FT8 on it,
Yeah.
or WSJTX software, and then let us know when, and then Greg can set up a little three-way or whatever Zoom meeting. Oh, I can Zoom you. We can do one-on-one Zoom without a license. I can work with you if you want, Frank, or the both of us or whatever. And anyone else
Yeah.
too, if you want to do this, it's handy to have the same computer you're Zooming on as your radio computer. A lot of people have them separate, in which case you'd have to bring your camera and show us your screen, but that works too. And we can step you through it. And like I said, you'd start with FT8, and then from there going to this is nothing.
Like during the day, I'm out here, coming there, doing all kinds of stuff. But
Mm.
in the evenings, just about when I'm ready to fall asleep, I start playing with this.
Yeah.
And at that time, my brain ain't working because I'm already wore out. And
Well,
I start.
Whatever is good for you, and any other guys too, if you want to start dabbling in this stuff with the Zoom, it just makes it so easy. You can pop your screen on with one click of a button, and if you're snagged on something, the other person can have a look and help you out. So if anyone wants to give this a shot, then let us know. Now, meteor scatter, which I'm talking about on Wednesday, is an HF. Well, it's 6 meters typically, and that will open up for a lot of guys who've got 6 meters on their rig. So that's another thing that we can get together and work on. It's a more distant thing. We won't be doing that between here and Dothan. It's kind of got a minimum distance of 300-400 miles. It's typically 600 to 800 miles.
Well, Chris, could you plug your talk on Wednesday?
How's that?
Could you plug your talk on Wednesday?
Yeah, I was talking about that just while you were out of the room. And Frank, you weren't here yet. Going to be talking about meteor scatter first. Then aircraft scatter, I'm going to skip over to the end. If you guys come on Wednesday, you don't want to be bored with the same stuff. So I'm going to do meteor scatter. Then I'm going to go to rain scatter. Then a bit of Earth, Moon, Earth. At the end of the evening, I'm going to go back to what we're doing now, aircraft scatter. So if you guys come Wednesday, you can leave when we start this. So, it can be an earlier evening for you. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, and then aircraft scatter last. And we'll talk about Liaison software tools. The tool here was Flight Radar 24. We'll talk about distances and what kind of beams, what kind of equipment you might need that you don't have. This is kind of a rough draft. I'll have that fixed up by Wednesday. And I'll be bringing a bunch of them to hand out. I'm going to make a dozen of them, and you'll have them to look at while we're doing the talk. We're going to be covering a lot more ground, so we're not going to be doing it nearly this detail. But anyhow, that's on Wednesday. Hopefully you guys can make it. If not, and if you want to dabble in it, just send me an email. I can give you a Reader Digest version over email or whatever. Any questions on what we're doing here? I guess that's it. If you want to pause the recording, Greg, and then they can tell us what they really think.
Well, thanks so much, Chris, for introducing us to a new way to make contacts. And I've been in ham radio a long time, but I really got the mindset that 2 meters, if you have an HT, you're lucky to hit the repeater.
Yeah.
And if you're on simplex, you know, maybe 3 miles. It depends, 10 miles, 15. But tonight we got 75 miles out of
75 miles with a hill in between. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like this guy in Minnesota, we're 170 miles apart,
Yeah.
and we do it every week. In fact, they're probably doing it right now. I'm AWOL.
All right,
That's-
guys. Thanks for participating, and we'll wind up this Beginners Academy Zoom.